Hello, this is refactoring 47 refactorings in 45 minutes, and the slot is 40 minutes, so it's going to be fun. It's 5 minutes late already. So this talk was supposed to be done with Duncan, which you might know if you search YouTube for Kotlin videos. He's doing a video every week. So he was supposed to be here. Usually he would say, hello, it's Duncan. But he couldn't make it, and instead I got Cody. This is like a Kotlin mascot, if you didn't know. So I'll be pairing with the Cody. And in case you think it's far-fetched, like I have photo evidence that both Cody and Duncan are real, that's at KotlinConf. So anyway, the plan is to look at this code base, which Duncan writes on YouTube every week. This is gilded rows kind of system which keeps track of items and so on. So I'll demo it in a bit. And the plan overall is to have like a project overview while tidying things up. We'll show it later to Duncan, see what he thinks. And Duncan also asked to make item type more functional, convert to a function, I think that's his idea, and to maybe look at quality. So this is the plan. I'll use IntelliJ IDEA, sorry, not Android, and Kotlin. I'll use this technique called test and commit and revert. So it basically means you cannot commit without running tests. If you run tests and they pass, it's auto-committed. Otherwise, everything's reverted. So not scary Cody at all. And then I'll use custom progress bar. I'll have a refactoring counter so I can remember how many refactorings I've done. And I'll use IntelliJ with K2, Kotlin plugin with K2 mode, which is default now in IntelliJ. And just to be clear, refactoring is like changing the source code without changing the behavior. So but reformatting doesn't count. So something like that, and I'll count unique refactorings. So time for tippy-tappy, or tippy-tappy is the sound the keys make on the keyboard. Well, to begin with, this is the project Duncan developed. So it's like inventory system. We have a list of items. We can add them. I think it's a bit unfinished, so we can say this item needs to be sold by tomorrow, and we have like one. So we add it. It appears at the bottom. And we get quantity and price. I think it needs a button to sell items. If I'm in a shop, I want to sell. But it's not the latest code, so maybe it's in the latest videos done. So yeah, here is the IntelliJ. And this is the refactoring counter in the top right corner. And let's just look at the code, because I looked at it earlier, and I'll show this to Duncan later, basically. That's the plan. So as you can guess, that's the entry point. And obviously, this is not Android app. It's pure Kotlin talk. So we're in the main class. So the first thing I would do, I would just reformat it, right? Just because it looks a bit funny. And then I would personally go to move entry point to the top. That's I'll count as one. And this is the idea, to have abstractions first and then details later. So let's run the tests, see if this works. Oh, running the wrong thing. Should run all tests. So you now see the test passed. Oh, I know what's going on. AI assistant's trying to help me. So what I need is to go to the settings of the TCR and say, when you commit, use just last commit name. Don't use AI assistant. Unfortunately, no good Wi-Fi, so it doesn't work. So now it passed the test and it committed, so that's the plan. Right, so the next thing, just looking through the code, we created an app here, and it uses dbconfig, and this is the first thing, but it's declared at the bottom. So following the same idea, high-level abstraction at the top. If I move this up, this stops compiling, because in Kotlin, properties cannot do forward referencing for reasons. So what we can do, we have a few options. We can convert property to initializer. That will fix the code, so I'll count this as refactoring. The other thing we can do, this is pretty much a function, right? So we could even convert it to a function. That's another refactoring. But I'm not sure about this. There is another option, I think, which I would really prefer, I guess in some ways, to make it lazy. That would count as a refactoring. But overall, would I go that far? I'll probably just undo. And this is a bit pointless, but it is this kind of discovery thing, learn about code while trying to modify it. There is also environment variable, which is actually only used in this place. So I wish Duncan made it private. And that's potentially another refactoring, making things as private as possible. Then you don't even need to think too much. Do I need to search? No, I can see it's only used here and it's private. That's easier. But then if something's used only once, I often try and inline it and see what it looks like. It's not a hard rule, but I think this is kind of better, and that's the inline. So this now looks, I think this is actually pretty good, but just to pull on the line of trying to improve things and see what they look like, I would try and import these things, especially because this environment.env kind of repeats itself. And it's actually systemenv, but if we do it like this, then it's like, oh, so that's the refactoring to import things. And then we can see like, oh, this thing kind of breaks the flow, so maybe this could be called localenv. It's also like the question of what this thing is now, localenv. I think this is not bad. So maybe that's extract a field as well as a refactoring, and I'll run tests again now. So another thing here, which kind of puzzles me, this is infix function, right? So like it's never too obvious to me here, is it evaluated like this, or it's evaluated like this first, right? And it's, if you just convert it from infix, then it becomes really obvious what overrides what. So that's, I would count that as an improvement. So I personally would leave it like this, but it depends on what you prefer. Yeah, so that's DB config is used in a few places. So here, I think there is a bit of, going back to main, there's a bit of repetition here. So like, why is DB config? Like, I don't know, we'll ask Duncan, but for now, I'll count as a refactoring and remove duplicate name. And I think the app, it also, all the parameters for the app, they're all different types. So there is no, like, if they're all strings, like, yeah, we should name them to avoid confusion. They're all different types. Right, so we create the app and then we use it here as root. So it's used once, so I need to follow my rule in line and see what it looks like. It looks like this. I don't think it's better. It's kind of worse. We can try and put this on separate lines. Oops, do it here like that. Still kind of meh. But then like I'm suspicious of server 4, so like one technique I sometimes try, like, inline this function and just see. What do we like? Oh, this is much better suddenly. So, oh, inline, I guess, is a refactoring. So I'll undo this step and let's just look at the server 4. And if I reformat it like this and format the file, then I can see like the port is passed down, roots are passed down, as server is the function name. So the only thing it's doing is adding undertow to call the same function. So it is used in a few places, so I kind of don't want to inline it. What we could do to achieve the same to maybe convert parameter to receiver. This is like a refactoring, and this code now looks a bit better, right? So we have server 4, maybe like this, right? So this is an improvement, I believe. And here, it's also server 4 port, maybe server on port. Right, so, and that's, I'll count this as a rename. This is like bread and butter of all refactorings, probably the most used one. So this is definitely better. At least I can see the most important thing is the app, then we get roots, then we start a server. Also the question for them, like, well, how does it shut down? Maybe it should more shut down gracefully. I don't know. Well, yeah, so that's, I think, all things here probably. And let's look at the roots. So if I go to definition of roots, this is kind of interesting because, I'll format again. This is interesting because it's a property defined as an extension on the app class, which is kind of clever, and it implements a type of HTTP handler. So HTTP handler, it's the HTTP library, and it's a function, takes immutable request, returns immutable response, and there is also a filter function, which just takes a handler, returns a handler. And now you know HTTP4K. So this is what's going on here. Like we set up lots of filters, and then these are handlers to take request, return response. I would go down this route again, just import these things, because this is slightly nicer. And then the problem here, I think this is funny, like just looking at this, like why there is error, deliberate error. I suspect this is done for testing. And just to kind of confirm, if I like rename the endpoint and run tests, like, yeah, they're red and it's all auto-reverted, so cool. But then it's like not essential for the app. And I think it's useful to be a bit like chronological with endpoints can be useful. So this error is really for testing, could go at the end. We kind of don't need to look at it. Then what do? We list items and then we add them and then we maybe delete them. So yeah, I reordered these things, right? Also, there are handlers down there, so what I'll do, I'll collapse everything. I think that's a useful technique in general to have an overview of the file, like collapse everything, expand only certain areas. So we can see now at the top there is add handler. Maybe we'll move, I'll move list handler up. Then it's add and then delete. Maybe that's the thing to do, so I'll count this as a refactoring. And yeah, so let's just look maybe at list handler to get like bottom-up overview of the code base and clean this up. So this is a list handler. And what's interesting here to me is that this function, this too is a function, and go to definition, it takes a handler which is function with one parameter, but list handler actually it's a receiver, so it actually has two parameters, but I guess it's fine because it's referenced inside a getter of a property, which is extension on the same type. It's like, it really surprises me that Kotlin does it. It's pretty cool. So the way we can explore, we can like convert reference to Lambda. This is a refactoring. I think in some ways it's better because it's more explicit. Like it doesn't need type, I think, here. But yeah, so this is what's going on, really. Well, we can convert it back as well. Maybe this is better after all. I'll keep it, but I'll increase the counter. And the funny thing, if we convert this back, for example, to parameter, it stops working here. So yeah, that's, I guess, another thing to add, but I'll undo it, another thing to count. So inside listener, what are we doing? We access this, which is app, and I'm not sure I would want to have this. I would just remove redundant this, and I think this is a bit of an improvement. And then we're really using this variable once, so maybe in line. Maybe put things on the different lines and give them names. This might be better, slightly. Yeah, so we load in stock list from the app, and then we render it. And render will return us a response, which is HTTP. I'm not going to go down the rendering route for now, at least. It's using handlebars. So I think what we get here, we can look at like how loading works, right? And this will take us to the app. So if I collapse it and expand a bit. So we are in the app now, and app is, what is it, how does this thing work? So it's using items, which I believe is a database thing, and it does something in transaction, then it uses price loader. Okay, that's a bit sophisticated. And the price loader has a stock which does load and update. So kind of dive into the level down, I guess. And this is stock and update. It uses items and does stuff with it. Like I think it updates items as it loads it. The interesting thing here is the signature, which is result type. It's not a Kotlin result, so we can go to definition. Well, that's a type alias because Kotlin used to have a result, and then like it made more public, and so there is a class. So this result is the sealed hierarchy of success and failure. Kind of similar to reach errors, which are coming to Kotlin. So this is what this function does, and then the load returns us a result, and then we're doing a flat map. Like if you're doing functional programs, it may be obvious to you, but in reality, it's like we do the callback on success, on failure, return failure. And it's a bit like nested. I'm not sure I would go for it unless you are like very keen functional programmer. So what I would do, maybe convert this, just to try the refactoring of flatten out. So the intention is like, this is so nested for doing so little. Load items, update, return, right? It should be 3 lines. So I'll count this as a refactoring. And then what we can do, copy this thing to here. And then we can say that on failure, we just return like this. And if we extract a variable here, and we can call it loaded stock list. So basically the same name as this one, we're kind of shadowing. And then we need another return here, and we can kind of delete this flat map now because, because we're loading it here. So this is the refactoring to kind of flatten flat maps. Do other return, then you don't need a flat map. That's kind of better. Then there is the when, and it feels like there is else, which could be done also short-circuited. So there is like a series of refactorings. They're all really hidden inside Altenta. So you go to refactoring menu. I don't think this one is there. So we can replace when with if automatically. We can invert if like this. And then there is refactoring to replace return with if expression. So it basically, like I'll count this, but it basically pushes return in each branch. I think it's a bad name because it's asymmetric to lift return. So if like one is lift, the other should be drop. So you can also lift back. So it's like there is some symmetry, right? So if I keep it like this should just still run, right? Because we did few transformations. And then we can do this, remove redundant else, which is also refactoring there. And it won't show you redundant else if it's not redundant, so it's all like, at least this bit is like proper refactorings. So yeah, and this is like way more flat, like it should be just like, what are we doing? We're loading things, then we're calculating days out of date, like, okay, fine. And then we like updating them and saving. So this is kind of better, I think. Again, there is this function used once, maybe I'll inline it and delete this function from here. So I think this is better. This, again, used once. Maybe I'll go and inline that. I think it's like, it's also, there's the technique of just inline stuff. If it's terrible, undo. Otherwise, you might learn something. And here, I think it's maybe the intention here is to have updated items, right? Updated items. So that's kind of what we wanted to do here. And then we're saving them, so maybe this could be a one-liner. With smaller font, it should be fine. So yeah, I think this is better. One thing here as well that I can see days out of date has conversion to int inside of some business kind of code. This is a bit funny. We also have comparison to L here, like lon y. I think this works without it. But also, why not convert to int here? Then like clearly don't need L here. This is redundant, and I'll count this as refactoring. And this should work. So I think the idea of like this approach is just to convert to the right type as early as you can. It's similar to like fail fast or get the right types early. Don't push conversion into like the core of your system, right? So yeah, I don't know how it ended up, I guess, like while recording YouTube videos. Yeah, I think it was enough done here. Let's go back to the app where this was used, and it was used by price stock loader, which is called here to load stock, and then it's rendered, right? So in the load function, we're now in the load, which uses that loading is what we just looked at, right? It again uses result, and it has price by. Once again, used only once, so I'll just delete it. And the interesting thing here is that, let's see, I'll just run this just in case. It's using a thread pool, I think, to get the prices from remote server, so in parallel. And I think this is a bit funny. That's like a thread pool, which is not even in a constructor, so it's like harder to test. It will always just create a thread pool. So there is this thing you can do, move to constructor. So like, it's not used now, but at least like we get a chance to substitute it in test to some other thing that won't allocate, right? And another thing here, what's going, I think, is like we're doing the whole code on the thread pool, but what we're really doing is just the pricing. So actually, there is this thing. I look for, notifications here. So this shows implicit is shadowed by this it, so maybe this should be renamed to, I think it's stock list here. So the type is stock list, so yeah, this is better. But these items really, again, it's like, could be local variable priced items. And then this whole thing can be moved out like that. So we so like the scope of, I'll count this as refactoring. So the scope of concurrency is reduced. So it's just more clear why we're doing this something in parallel. And this is kind of just like that. Maybe we can remove names again. Yeah, so I think this gives us an idea that this thing is a pricing item. So we'll load them, update, and then we price from some remote system. Right, so we're back to the app now. And in the app, okay, let's have a look at the app. I think there is a yellow thing as well, right? So it says there's a platform type because zone off is coming from JDK. So like, yeah, specify type explicitly. That will make it happy. Again, I'll move it down to the bottom because this is not essential. Like when we open the app class, we want to see the app, not some details. And what the app does, has items, which I think is essential. Then we have features. I think these are feature flags. Oops. Oh, it doesn't go. Okay. So yeah, only one flag. So I think this is not essential. And then we know pricing is essential. So the order of these things is a bit funny. Also, if we look for usages, I think it always goes like item pricing something. So for me to understand this better, I think, you know, you can extend this window with Command Control Shift left right, so you can resize them. So I'll move features down there and price into the second. So it's all about items, then we price using clock, and then we have some analytics and features at the end. So I think this is a much better order of fields. So I'll count this as a refactoring. And what we really construct, I just noticed, is that like this is not used in main. In main, we use this secondary constructor, right? It also has different order of things. Maybe we can reorder. So that's dbconfig, it's database, then features at the end, something like that. Yeah, and so this is, I find it funny, like we have this specific URL inside like our domain object, and it also has dbconfig only to convert it later to items here. So I don't think it belongs here really. And I wish there was a refactoring to move it to like secondary constructor to function, because in Kotlin without new keyword, like functions and constructors, they're even closer, it's syntactically. So I wrote my own basically, it's just copy it like this. So there was a little monkey if you didn't see. That's why it's mine. And yeah, I guess we should move it to main since we're here, because this is where all the wiring is happening. So like that's move function, I'll count that, and can go to the top. And we kind of back to where we were, like did a full loop. The interesting thing here is that this function always uses dbconfig anyway. So why do we even specify it then, right? We could do this, except that it's not happy, but we could basically use the default here. I think the other thing is that there is a bit of asymmetry. dbconfig was always empty, but all the other fields have the production defaults. So why is that? That's a bit funny. So now we can just delete dbconfig from everywhere, like from here. And we can find it here. This is a bit tedious. I wish there was a more automated way of doing it. I didn't find one. So let me know if you did. So it was something like replace parameter with default and delete all the parameters which are like past the same value. There must be a clever way of doing it. So yeah, we've done kind of full circle, I think. That's enough overview. And yeah, let's look at what Duncan suggested. I hope Cody is not too tired. Maybe he needs a tea break. You can go, Cody, if you want. It will be somewhere, I think it's called item type. Right, let's collapse everything. And the item type is an abstract class. There are implementations here. Oh, I see functions at the bottom. That's what Duncan probably meant about cleanup quality as well. I think it's a funny function which kind of operates on quality and returns quality, and subtract is the same. They probably don't belong here. Maybe that's what he meant. So I'll move them again to quality. Is there a thing? Yeah, let's move. So move them to here. And this is the quality. Yeah, so I guess like the code smell is that this function could be on the object. So how do you do this? Obviously, like convert parameter to receiver, rename to class, make it an operator, and well, I'll count this as refactoring. I think there is a funny thing, if you ever noticed. So like this all works, right? So if I remove the operator and search, this is quick, right? It's like boom. But if you add an operator, it takes time. There are reasons, but like, well, I mean, come on, small project, right? So what would we do next? I guess we couldn't replace. So this is where it becomes kind of tedious with slow search. We want maybe operators, right? Like something like that. If I go back here, that's the other one to replace. And finally, oops. Finally, the last one somewhere. Somewhere here. Okay, that was a refactoring. And then it's also interesting, like L10 to everywhere, that's the tactics. But there is no refactoring to move it into the class, even though it's so kind of should be there, right? We can copy paste and delete this quality and it should just work. Oh, except it doesn't, because there are imports. And you because it was a standalone function which had to be imported, and now it's part of the class, it doesn't have to be imported. So that wasn't very graceful. I guess we'll do better with minus. But the funny thing that actually there is a reverse refactoring, convert to extension. So if I do this, IntelliJ does it for me. It's like, oh, like there is the other way to get it out, but not the way back in. This is funny. Well, I guess I'll count that. And so, yeah, undo this. So for minus, let's be clever. And there is this technique called switcheroo. Switcheroo is a game. I don't know much about it, but that's like a name of a technique. So instead of doing what we did, we extract a function, call it minus. And then we go, I'll just reformat it. Then I'll make it maybe in the middle of the screen. So yeah, convert this to receiver, you know, all the usual stuff. Minus is the right name. Make it public. Make it an operator. And then where it's used. Oh, it's used here. Oh, it took a while to search for it. It's used here. We'll move it into the object, just like that. Remove quality. Run test. So everything still works. All we did, we added a function which is only used here in one place. And now the switcheroo happens, which is like this subtract is used everywhere. So I can inline this now. And everything is updated everywhere. So I didn't need to search like for each operator. So there must be a more technical name. It was like, oh, like make the changes and then inline the function. But yeah, switcheroo is the name. Yeah, I think that's what Duncan meant. Oh, I'll check with him later. Right, back to item type. I think like that's the actual refactoring he wanted to try. What does it do? It's a type which has one function to update item based on something, like the current date, I guess. And there are different types. So there's undated. It does nothing. Okay. And there is like brie. It does something. I guess the cheese based on what? On date. Based on date, it does 2 or 1. Yeah, that kind of thing. So if we want it to be a function, I guess it would make sense to have it maybe an interface, right? And then, oh well, in the first place, can we alt enter? No. I think the answer is no. And there used to be extract interface refactoring. It's all gone in K2. Not enough people used it, I think, and JetBrains were like, we have statistics. We deleted. So please use all of the refactorings. Otherwise, they will be removed at some point. I think it's during migration to K2, just more like economically, it wasn't, that didn't make too much sense. So that's an interface. Maybe it could be fun. Yeah, I'll make it fun. I'll count it. I think it just like works like this. So it's interesting that you can make interface fun. But I think we'll benefit from this a bit later. So, yeah. Yeah, maybe we can rename it to invoke, right? But maybe, yeah, let's rename it to invoke to kind of get ourselves closer to functional things. So later we'll have a chance. So yeah, I think this is a bit more like, could be almost a function. So maybe I'll practice this on undated class. And it's a funny class because like it doesn't have state, like it didn't have to be a class, right? It could be, oh, let's see how it's used here. It could be an object, really, right? I wish there was a refactoring here, but it doesn't, so it exists. But if we do this, it breaks the code over there. I think it should only, like, because of this constructor. So again, we can use switcheroo. We can do undated as a, like this, and then convert it to object. So this still just works, but we can inline undated. And in this case, it's a bit silly. It's only one usage, but if it was more, that could save us time. And it also guarantees that it's going to be correct rather than do, like, searching the code base, right? And this undated now, like, it's a singleton, so we could have it as a value as well. So this should be equivalent. So that's, so there was switcheroo. Did I count it? Don't know. I'll count this, like, convert object to a value. In a way, it's kind of better, I think. And then this is where we can benefit from fun interface. It says, oh, you can convert this to lambda. It's like, oh, that's cool. That counts. And I'll do, like, I'll convert, like, complains that it's not used. Okay, fine, underscore. So that's the thing. But this is still, like, it's not a function, right? We specify type explicitly here. It's not function. It's an interface. So maybe we can make it, like, just take some direction towards functions and make this fun interface implement a function type, which is kind of a weird thing, but why not? We're almost there. So I can do this, and then I can just remove invoke. Oh, wait, before we do that, let's search for invoke. That's the favorite thing. If we search for invoke, we can see it's only used once. Actually, in this file where we were refactoring result type, right, it's just down there. Okay, cool. So if I redo this and guess what? I cannot search for this anymore. That's why like functions are great, but like I want to be searching for them. And the fun thing, can I go to invoke? It's like, oh, I cannot go to invoke anymore either. So this is a funny thing, right? So for this reason, like, yeah, functions, good, but there are downsides. That's all I'm saying. So I think that was a refactoring to convert it to an actual proper function thing. And then, well, what's the point of fun interface? No, in Duncan, I think you want to just be a function set. Maybe we just make it a type alias, which is also a closed conversion, except like this thing is red. So I think this should work. And yeah, we wanted a function, so we know we can convert this to function. We did it before. So that's a thing. But this is a function which returns a function. It's not quite what we want, right? We want basically here return a reference maybe to a function. So to do that, what we can do, we can convert this to an anonymous function, and make it like this, right? And then make it to, anonymous, yeah. Then we could extract an anonymous function to a variable. Like IntelliJ says no, but it's fine. It can do it. It's possible. I mean, it's valid. So we can do this manually. So that's the transformation. And that takes us a step forward to use a named function like this. Right. So maybe that's a refactoring to like, but now it's also like, if it's anonymous, like it's fine with underscore. But if it's named, like, no, I want now a parameter. Like, slightly gets in the way. And then it complains that it's empty. It's like, okay, delete. But if it deletes, it stops compiling. So yeah, now we have this. We can actually move this out and call it updated, undated. And that's kind of the function that we want. Let's suppress this for undated. And now this thing is referring to what we want. So that's another switcheroo. So I'll just count it like this. So let's just run it. Yeah, so, well, here, I don't have internet. I was going to ask Junie to do things. We can ask Junie. Come on, Junie, what? Change Brie to be a function similar to undated. I'll make it wider. Let's see if it can cope, if there is internet. That's also interesting. Like, why is it searching for Brie? Like, you should figure out from the current file, this is an actual, entity in the code base. So do search by ID. You don't do text search for, like, parentheses. Okay, it found some tests. I didn't know the file was there. Might take a while. Oh, well. We have time. Cody has a joke. I think it's his favorite joke. Like, what is the most ridiculous function definition in Kotlin which is valid? I think he was saying that it's something like external, internal, suspend fun. So that's a Cody joke for you. Right. You never know. Will it change this file or everything? I mean, like maybe with with some code guidance, it will not go as wild as it can. I hope it's getting there because you can imagine, right? It can see all the run configurations in the IDE. Like we could tell Junie, do what the last commit did, right? It's resend. I think it's going on a strange. Is it doing strange? What's the plan? We need to change Brie to be functional. Similar. Like, yeah, that's what I said. I know. Thank you. Like, what's the plan? Opened, revealing semantic error. Excuse me. So he changed this to the right thing. Ooh, it looks like it's okay. What is it doing now? I hope it runs a test because the fun thing, if Junie runs a test, all the TCR, test and commit and revert, it will still work. So if it's failing, it will just revert, and Junie might get really confused. But if it works, it will commit. So it did the right thing, right? So here it's did the right thing. Oh, it's running tests. Oh my god. Yay, it worked. Stop before you change all the projects. So I'll give credit for the last refactoring to Junie. So yeah, oops, wrong. So yeah, that was the 47 refactoring teppy. So what did we learn? I think Junie, Cody and we learned that refactoring can be an exploratory tool. So sometimes you can be like, this is a big refactoring we need to do on the project. And it can be very difficult, but sometimes you just like explore, do tiny things, right? And it doesn't have to be like scattered all over the place. But yeah, it's basically a way, I think there is like this metaphor, it's like it's more tactile. You learn how the code functions by modifying it, not by just looking, because looking is a bit like cursory. So yeah, obviously L10 everywhere to find refactorings, they hide in there. Some of them are not refactorings, confusingly, so maybe they should be marked somehow. Yeah, and then similar to like exploring all the refactorings, like while fixing small things, some of the small things, I think Cody added this. So it was like fixing small things that turn out to be very big. I think you stole it from Ken Beck's Tidy First book, Cody This phrase. And then a technique I haven't heard spoken about too much, this switcheroo, which saves you time and makes code transformation safe. Then yeah, searching for operators can be slow. I think I might print a small T-shirt for Cody for Kotlin Conf and like make him wear it so people from JetBrains notice it. And yeah, and that's how we looked at all these refactorings. You can come later with magnifying glass. Yeah, things that you use, obviously that's the code base. I'll post a link on Blue Sky to this. So you can search for Duncan McGregor Kotlin. You'll find that's the repo I used. If you notice the shortcuts, I sometimes press F1. It's basically the top shortcut. It's like Alt to enter to save me some effort. That's one of my favorite things to do. Then if you want to try test and commit revert, there is a plugin route called limited weep, work in progress. It's one of the components there. And then the progress bar, which you've seen, I think it's kind of cool thing. And obviously, whatever, hit the bell or something on YouTube, whatever the process is, and watch Duncan's videos. So this was 47 refactorings in, I think it was like 43 minutes. I don't know. What's the time? Like, I'll go with this. Yeah, thank you.